Yes, job people, this is Michael Shamaya representing. I will say, Hail the Lion voice, saying it is time for the lions and the lionesses to tell their own story. King David killed Goliath with a stone, we original dread.
The fittest of the fittest shall survive. My people, open your eyes. Wake up. Blessed love, this is Queen Omega representing for all lions and lionesses. With the lion's voice, we come to tell our story. Ras Tafari, live it. Hey, the lion's voice. Ras Tafari.
When these terms come up, this vibration of Pan-Africanism, this vibration of using the rootical energy that Rastafari has been centripetal to. I want to make sure the persons get that. Can't talk about reparation and not deal with Rastafari. Can't talk about repatriation and not deal with Rastafari. Can't talk about homeschooling, natural education, items, down to the music. And we can go back to ska. Reggae, yeah, but I like to go like before, right? All of this is grounded in the same vibrational shift in information, teachings, wisdom teachings more specifically, coming out of Ethiopia, coming out of those East African spaces, traversing through the entire 12 million square miles of the continent of Africa, as we know it today, to be able to have this celebration of African Liberation Day. It's important that we recognize that it's also a day that's very revolutionary. Everything isn't just soft, sweet. It's a time when we speak about the realities of capitalism and imperialism and all of the isms that are the talons, the fangs that interfere with our ancestral sacred traditions and our ancestral sovereignty in contemporary times.
The year is 1892, and the land of Ethiopia has been experiencing 4 years of terrible famine and drought. They call it the Kikuken, or the evil days. At least 1/3 of the human population and 90% of the cattle have died. The hyenas have feasted on so many carcasses that they have become overweight and barely able to move. Just when the people could take no more of the evil days, a woman named Wasiro Yeshimabet is giving birth in a place called Erjersa Gora. This is her 9th attempt to bring forth new life. Her previous 8 attempts only resulted in death. Will this child live? Thankfully, a healthy baby boy is born. His first cries are drowned by thunder and lightning flashes across the night sky. The heavens open up and torrential rain starts to fall. Ethiopia's drought is over, and the baby boy is given the name Tafari, meaning one to be feared or respected. Lich Tafari's father, Ras Makunin, is a very important man in 1892 Ethiopia. Although he is overjoyed at the birth of his newborn son, he cannot spend much time with him. Ras Makunin is the governor of Harar and must get back to the famous walled city to deal with its affairs. Furthermore, he is the foreign minister of Ethiopia, and having traveled to different places in Europe, he is very aware of the material and military advances they have made and the looming threats they pose to his country. Ras Makunin knows that the majority of Ethiopians have no idea what is coming, and that he has to work that much harder to secure the realm. Lich Tafari would grow up to become the legendary emperor, Haile Selassie I. To understand his journey, we must first understand the Ethiopia that he was inheriting, and what it was like when he was born in 1892. Get your copy of Kwesi Bansu's book, Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1, The Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings, and increase your knowledge about the history, politics, and culture of Ethiopia in 1892, and how it connects to the rest of African and world history at the time. Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1 is available for purchase at www.bookmanexpress.pub. Please visit for more information.
Dr. Chinzira, please just give us why is this day important and what are your thoughts on this great day?
First and foremost, I really desire to give thanks and praise to the One Most High for just giving I and I the opportunity to be able to have this type of reasoning at a time like this. Not everyone, some persons are very comfortable with referring to African Liberation Day as just Africa Day. Like we're already free, everything's safe, everything perfect. And it's not everything safe, everybody's cool, and definitely not perfection. So I'm very grateful that I and I are able to reason around African Liberation Day. And I always start at a space of spiritual attunement because I could speak about myself a lot, but I encourage persons put the name in the chat or put it in your Google Scholar specifically, and then you can get an idea of how I sit as a grandmother, mother, as an artivist, not just an activist, but using art to be engaged. And specifically my tie as a griot, being able to bring like all the different story from everybody intergenerationally and across various platforms. African liberation is every day. May 25th is the highlight primarily because of what was actually established through various Pan-African congresses that go as far back as the 1900s, early 1900s. And the progression facilitated the establishment of an all African Peoples Conference that was hosted in the same Ghana that we speak of now. And as a matter of fact, at the same University of Ghana. December 1958. And from that humble space where there were only, at the time, less than a dozen countries that were actually independent. Armed struggle, active struggle, liberation, vibrations, pulling on the kingdoms of His Imperial Majesty and Her Imperial Majesty in Ethiopia as their grounding within other parts of the African continent. Then we moved in from 1958 to 1963, where it was formalized as no longer just April 15th is the day for African freedom, but it's African Liberation Day.
Can you give me a little bit more volume?
Of course.
Yes.
Sometimes I don't have my country voice on all the time. I can hear my country voice. Yeah. 1963. So we really have this opportunity when we speak of. Do you desire for me to continue, or you would like me to?
Yes. No. Continue. Never go forward to Ras.
All right. Thanks. So 1963 facilitated the time where African Liberation Day, again, by this time, over 30 different countries were now moving in that space of independence, complete sovereignty away from the former Eurasian colonizers. This is a time where this is the liberation, like big, like long festival, parade, wherever our people need to sing, to be involved in the total liberation and unification of Africa. And Nkrumah said that. So I don't want to take claim to nothing like that. When these terms come up, this vibration of Pan-Africanism, this vibration of using the rootical energy that Rastafari has been centripetal to, I want to make sure the persons get that. Can't talk about reparation and not deal with Rastafari. Can't talk about repatriation and not deal with Rastafari. Can't talk about homeschooling, natural education, items, down to the music. And we can go back to ska. Reggae, yeah, but I like to go like before, right? All of this is grounded in the same vibrational shift in information, teachings, wisdom teachings more specifically, coming out of Ethiopia, coming out of those East African spaces, traversing through the entire 12 million square miles of the continent of Africa, as we know it today, to be able to have this celebration of African liberation. It's important that we recognize that it's also a day that's very revolutionary. Everything isn't just soft, sweet. It's a time when we speak about the realities of capitalism and imperialism and all of the isms that are the talons, the fangs that interfere with our ancestral sacred traditions and our ancestral sovereignty in contemporary times. Make sure we understand page. So a lot of what my full strength is in this regard is not so much the professorial, the teaching piece, the university piece, because that's secondary to the spiritual essence.
Okay.
Pulling on that ancestral sacred tradition, on those ancestral traditional practices that we can pick up and bring into light, into liberty in this 21st century, that we're doing our utmost best to survive in. So I share this through the legacy of family traversed throughout the earth, from East Africa into South America, into the Caribbean and Central America, and even my stint being socialized in the 48 contiguous US. And I also bring this strength to my 101-year-old mother, who still walks the earth, pulls my ear once in a while, but still clear enough to give me guidance, to recognize the importance of having a liberated mind, body, soul, and spirit. So when I think of African liberation and the role that Rastafari will play in this new Africa, not just an African world, but I just gonna say the entire sovereign entity. It's eternal, and it's going to take work, and we stand ready. Give thanks.
Give thanks.
Well, millions of Africans were stolen and taken in bondage and suffered terrible acts of terrorism. Well, millions of Africans were stolen and taken in bondage and suffered terrible acts of terrorism. Well, it's best that we live out best, living in this life full of stress. Can't you see the government couldn't care less? Work every day, can't see no progress. So it's best that we live out the best, living in this life full of stress. Can't you see the government couldn't care less? Work every day, can't see no progress. See them slave for paychecks. Work every day, grow old from the stress that pays. They're getting cold in the west. Remember we were bought and sold for gold down in the west. I check in my history and I see the sweat from our back to them country. Black people hungry still for the money. Them a robber, them a steal. Funny cause the slave has to face $100 bill for real. Y'all can act like it ain't a big deal, but I got to stand for the black. Color of my skin could have never changed that. No, the slave master thought y'all never talk back, but I must react. See them on the war with Iraq, and my people them dying from the ears and crack. They lack basic things that they need, so they taste the Benjamins. Living like second class citizens. Time to look within. Time for Ali Selassie, I King of Kings, and Ethiopia there from the beginning. Well, ancient memories as it was, miss the soul of the people. So it's best that we live out the west, living in this life full of stress. Can't you see the government couldn't care less? Work every day, can't see no progress. So it's best that we live out the rest, living in this life full of stress. Can't you see the government couldn't care less? Work every day, they still come to a rest.
The shores, beautiful faces, take me to the Niger to behold creation. Look at the lions and tigers. Mother Africa, so majestically attired. Crown from her head to her toe with gold and sapphire, platinum, copper, rubber, and manganese. Charted anciently along the ancient seas. Under the blue now, fall sipping my ancient trees. Bathing in the hot springs, putting the structure at ease. Life is hell in the west, it's full time we all leave. $10 for a spliff, what's this?